Morning and good afternoon. Welcome to this Ask the Expert session about linking to full text. You may already have joined previous Ask the Expert sessions. So the way this works is that we took the pre-submitted questions, we put them onto slides, and we also provided answers. In some cases, we summarized several questions about the same topic into one, just because it doesn't make sense to answer it 3 times. I hope that this is going to be helpful for you. You can also ask questions during the session, and hopefully this will help you with anything you have on your mind when looking at the full text links in CDI. So let me go to the first question, if that moves. Okay, it doesn't for some reason. Okay, I seem to have a problem with moving slides. Okay, it works now. I don't know what that was, just got stuck somehow. Okay, so the first couple of questions were about the linking method. And the first question was, can you provide more details about why some collections use the link resolver and some use link in record? So there are pros and cons to both linking methods, but generally we are using the link resolver for selective and aggregated collections when we have a linking syntax from the provider, a consistent linking syntax that is reliable, and good identifiers in discovery and in the knowledge base. The advantage is that such links are configurable for you. You can add text and you can see all the link resolver links in the full view of your CDI record. The disadvantage is that they sometimes do not work well if only metadata can be used for linking. Link in record is generally used in cases where the record is uniquely available from one single platform. That means that there's no appropriate copy problem, or the link is difficult or impossible to create using the link resolver. That's often the case with material that's not typically ISSN, ISBN, etc. material. We have a lot of material types that are pretty unique to a platform, like videos and individual reports, individual papers, etc. In exceptional cases, we are creating hybrid collections. These are collections that contain some material with good metadata and identifiers and some without. And hybrid means in that case that the part of the collection that uses the link that part of the collection is using the link resolver. That's the part which has the good metadata and identifiers, and part is using the link in record. And they will be marked as such in ALMA and SFX. One of the collections we're considering to convert into a hybrid collection is ProQuest Central, because we had a lot of issues with some of the content. Some of the content is really good for link resolver and is preferred for link resolver, but we also have a large amount of material in ProQuest Central that is very problematic for the link resolver. So at the moment, the content team is still doing some analysis, but it's very likely that we're turning this into a hybrid collection. And on the technical side, it means that this is connected to 2 different DBIDs or more DBIDs, and one is going to some content which is the link in record, and the other one is controlling the content list, which is using the link resolver. So that's about the link resolver and link in record question. There's another question about linking methods. When are provider IDs used for linking, and how does this work? We had problems with the Gale collection because the ID that was used for the link was not accessible with our subscription. We have access to this record, but not with this ID. This is a question which is consisting actually of several collections, several questions. So several people asked about this, and one specifically pointed at the problem with Gale. So generally, provider IDs provide a far more accurate and reliable linking syntax than using metadata when using the link resolver. The document ID for such items are added to the open URL. You can also see this when you check the open URL. There is a string there which contains all the provider IDs for this particular record, and it's then sent to ALMA and SFX. And the link resolver then checks for the availability of this parameter and uses it for linking if the institution has access to this provider, of course. We therefore extend this type of linking to as many collections as possible, just simply because it's a really good and stable method to link to providers. We did come across some issues with Gale specifically, and that is also reflected in that question here, where record IDs do not automatically direct to the item the customer has access to on the provider platform. Some platforms do do redirect. So for example, if the same record is coming from several collections from the same provider, there may be like 2, 3, 4 different provider IDs for this one record, but you have only access to one of the collections, and that may not be the one that is in this case used for linking. Some platforms just redirect. They automatically know which collections you have access to. You come with one provider ID for one record, but they redirect you to the other collection. But that's not the case on the Gale platform. So these are cases where the OpenUL sent one Gale ID from one Gale collection to ALMA or SFX, but you have access to another. This is currently under analysis. We will resolve it. We just haven't found the solution yet, but we will. I mean, obviously, it's a problem for you. It needs to be resolved, and we will resolve it. Still, the provider ID, even in this case, is more reliable than using the metadata, especially for content which is not really ISSN or ISBN content. It's just a better linking method, but obviously that needs to be resolved. And then there was a question about the real-time availability check in ALMA. This is not really strictly speaking about linking, but it's very related to linking, so it's quite acceptable, I think, to also answer that in the context of linking. Why we are seeing available online in brief search result, but then it changes to check for available services after clicking on the, I think it's probably on the available online link. How can we fix such issue? There can be several causes for that, and I listed here on the slide as the answer the most common cause for it. There could be various others, and there's actually an article which describes the other causes, but because this is the most common one, I'd like to focus on this one. So this can have several causes. The most common one is with metadata mismatches between CDI and ALMA. In such cases, the record is coming from an aggregator selective package in ALMA SFX that is using the link resolver and the selective setting resubscribe to only some titles in the collection on the CDI tab in the electronic collection editor. Well, this setting is set to no. I think there's a problem with that sentence. Sorry. So in the CDI tab of the electronic collection editor, the setting we subscribe to only some titles in the collection is set to no. I hope that's clear now. This causes the real-time availability check in ALMA to fail if the metadata in CDI does not match the metadata in ALMA. For example, if there's no identifier and the title match fails as well. And just to clarify again, the real-time availability check with ALMA happens if a user is clicking on the full record in the CDI result list. So they're clicking on the full record, it opens the full record, it does a real-time availability check with ALMA. And if it can't find a match on the ALMA side, then it fails. And that means that although the availability setting was full text available in the result list, in the full view, it suddenly changes to not available. So sometimes this can be resolved by changing the metadata, and that's something that our support team would have to do. So you would have to open a support case for that. But you can also avoid this by using the selective option in the CDI tab and set this to yes instead to no. The result of this is that only the ID content is being matched to CDI, and in cases where this is the valuable content you would like to have access to and you really don't care about the other part, I mean, there might be like a minority of records which don't have an ID, then that's the best solution to do. Otherwise, please open a case and our content team is dealing with that. Our content team is also currently reviewing collections that are causing such issues to see if they can be treated as hybrid collections. That's what I mentioned before for ProQuest Central, that we're trying we're checking if we can convert this into a hybrid collection. For hybrid collection, if you do not use the resubscribe to only some title options, items that have no identifiers will use the link in record and not the link resolver. And that also means that there is no real-time availability check here. I mentioned that there is an article because there can be some other causes for that behavior. They're less often or less common, but this could be the case. And there are also some things that you can do to check if that's the case. For example, if your holdings files are not up to date, and some other things. So I put a screenshot here for this article. It's called CDI Tips and Tricks. We also have a slide later on to point you again to this article and another article that may be of help if you look for explanations or if you look for ways to troubleshoot linking. So have a look at this article also, and I think it's towards the bottom of the page when you go to the tips and tricks article. Question 4, direct links to PDF. Is there a way of adding one-click access to PDFs? Generally, links go to the HTML full text on the publisher website. That's probably what you experience most of the time. And for link and record collections, we do also have links to the PDF in some cases. That happens sometimes with institutional repositories or also with some other collections. They're usually not marked as such. So we don't even know when we load the data that they're going to the PDF or they're going to a landing page. So they're usually not marked as such. That's not something that can be locally controlled, but for collections that use a link resolver, both ALMA and SFX have functions to add custom links locally per collection target. I'm not sure if you want to do this, but if you have an individual collection where you want to add other links, then in theory that's a solution. The experience shows it's a lot of work to try to support custom links and maintain custom links. So really, I'm not sure if that's an option for you, but I just wanted to mention it here. In addition, we are developing a new service, CDI Quick Links, that will add direct links to PDF and HTML full text to the result list and also to the full view of a record. So this service will be available towards the end of the year. We're planning to have it first released with around 10 providers. Obviously, the links are created, or the linking syntax is created by provider. So we are not adding every provider at the beginning. We really have to do this provider by provider. But we're planning to have like at least 10 when we release it. And then we will extend the number of providers over time. Currently, we're testing it with 2 providers. It's in development, obviously. We developed first an end-to-end flow, and this is also why I can show you the screenshot. That's the first end-to-end flow that we have. In this case, this is Summon, but it will work in the same way on Primo. You have the PDF link on the result page. In this case, it's a book chapter from Wiley. You click on it and you get directly to the PDF. So again, that's in development. We're going to have this first released in November. That's the plan right now. We do want to release this a little bit early to some early access customers for testing and for giving us feedback. That will be available in September. If you're interested in testing this and being early access customers and provide feedback, then please contact us. So that's the quick links. There was a question about testing. Are there any queries you can suggest to see if you have any issues with CDI linking, perhaps a regular maintenance suggestion, an advanced search for link in record, and might uncover this problem scenario? We discussed this, but we don't really have a real recommended test scenarios here for linking. It strongly depends on institution activations, obviously. So there are 2 things that you could do. Use some permalinks for CDI records that you found were problematic before in your institution to be rerun periodically, specifically for certain collections that you found maybe problematic in the past. Run a search in CDI discovery and filter by different resource types. So video, audio, reference entry will often link via link and record, and article book very often links via link resolver. And this should give you a good mix of both link types, and click on the full text links for several records in the result. So if you want to do this on a regular basis, then that's something that you can do. Our content team is running such tests regularly to proactively identify issues with specific providers. But that's a little bit different. So they are testing certain collections. They're also going on what is reported. If there are more reports for one specific provider, then that obviously points to a weakness in one of the provider platforms. So they're using that for testing, etc. So that was about testing. Link preference. Is there a way to show both the link in record and the link resolver links? I know that there is a priority setting and it seems to work well, but we would prefer to have all links available. At this time, the system only shows one option. That's either the link in record, and that's the link in record which has the priority, or the link resolver links, and that's according to the priority setting that is documented in the article CDI and linking to electronic full text. I listed the link below. There's also going to be a slide about support and other it's another the other article that might help with this. We are going to add an option to show all links later this year. This is currently scheduled for December. It's a rather complex development, but we had a lot of requests for that to add all links. That's not something that we had in Primo Central either, so it's really something that we need to develop from scratch here. So that means that you will be able to see the link in records, all link in records, and also the open URL links in your full view. The design has not been done yet, so I cannot really give you a lot of details, especially not about configuration options. We need to figure it out once we do the design, but I just wanted to mention this here that we are going to add this later this year. Then there's a question about troubleshooting again. How can I see what data is sent to Alma in the open URL? We are using Primo V. This is something that you can find in the context object that is also referred to as CTO. And in Primo V, you can do this by appending the URL with the ampersand display CTO equals true to see it. I've got an example here, so I'll put a screenshot here. So the example is just the need to add a server address, obviously, there for a specific item, and then you just add at the end display CTO equals true. The result is that on the screen, in the full view of the article, you see what you see in the orange box here, display CTO. And if you click on it, you'll see a page like this. So it gives you all the different details that Alma gets, also that it uses for adding and augment the data. And it also gives you the open URL that is sent from CDI to Alma, to the Alma link resolver, so you can see what's in there. The data that is sent to Alma from Primo generally, that's not just Primo V, but everything, can also be found in the add data section of the PNX. This is where most of the data is coming from, and some of the IDs are also coming from the control section, but most of the data in the open URL is coming from the added data section in the PNX. I think that's the last question that was actually pre-submitted. That's DOAJ. And the question is, the removal of the dates in the DOAJ object portfolios was really problematic for us. We suddenly had results that were erroneously flagged as full text available. Can you explain what the situation is and how this is going to be resolved? So DOAJ unfortunately does not provide date ranges anymore. So we had to remove them and could not maintain them anymore in the knowledge bases. The CDI issue with DOAJ is caused by the portfolios being published to CDI, but without the date coverage. So the result is that it sets item to full text available that in fact are not available, that are outside the date range. To solve this issue, we are going to add a second DOAJ collection to Alma SFX without portfolios. Because without a date range, the portfolios cannot be correctly used for CDI. The collection will become available next week and will be marked to be used with CDI. So there's going to be an appendix to the name, which is saying for discovery or not for discovery. We are going to maintain the old collection also because many of you are using it and using it maybe also for other purposes than CDI. But for discovery, you need to move to the other collection. The collection is using the link in record anyway. It's not using the link resolver. So this is just for the availability setting, for setting the entire collection to available. So for that, the portfolios are really not needed, and it's just adding a level of complexity and failure really in this case that is not needed here. So there is an article for this, which I also put here, and I also added a screenshot here just to show this. So you can see that in yellow, that there's information here about the about what is coming next week. The article already existed, but we made this decision to add the second collection to solve the date coverage issues earlier this week. So that's relatively new, and that's the edit that you see here on the screen. I think this was actually the last question that was pre-submitted. Yes, so I only have that slide here left for support and documentation. you saw these links already in the different question slides, but I just wanted to summarize them here again. There's one article about CDI and linking to electronic full text, which also contains the priority settings that I talked about earlier. So about between link in record and the link resolver. And then there are also things which might be of interest here in the tips and tricks article, which is also on our knowledge center, and that's the second one. In case of linking issues, it's always useful to do troubleshooting before contacting support. Obviously, you can add more details to the support case, but please do open a support case, and the content team will deal with this. If you have more general question about linking behavior, please also contact us at CDI Info. It's just that if you have a very specific case about a specific collections, we don't have analysts under CDI Info, so we can answer general question about linking, but we cannot do analysis for specific issues. So again, please open a support case if you have a specific issue with a specific collection, but for more general questions, we'll be happy to hear from you at CDI Info. The feedback and the questions that we get at CDI Info are also used as input for changes or additions to articles. It helps us to understand better what your questions are and what you might not understand in the current documentation. So that's also very useful for us to hear from you.